Welcome to Living, Learning, and Leading with Purpose with me, Dr. Wajida Small. This channel is for those who want to live fulfilled lives, grow personally and professionally, and develop into influential and impactful leaders in their organizations, industries, and communities. Through my blog, podcast, and books, I share the best stories, lessons learned, and advice to help you live, learn, and lead with purpose. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Leading with Purpose podcast with me, your host, Dr. Wajida Small. I am so excited about this week's episode because we have an absolutely amazing guest. Her name is Vuyo Joboda, and y'all, she is out here changing the whole entire continent of Africa. I love her. I had the opportunity to meet her through our publisher, 13th and Joan. And she is just, her soul is just beautiful, and just her story is so inspiring and so amazing. And I can't wait for you to meet her. But before you do, I want to make sure I tell you a little more about her. So I'm going to pull up my notes because I do not want to miss a beat. All right, so Vuyo is an author. She is the author of a book called 21, and the book focuses on purpose and the principles of living a purposeful life. She is also the founder of Young, Bold, Black Africa, and awards for Young Black Excellence of the African continent. She is the CEO of the Vuyo Joboda Network, globally inspired, African ignited TV, broadcasting, and media network, and the host of Going Global with Vuyo Joboda, a talk show on lifestyle and travel. She is the founder and director of the International Fabulous Woman Gala Dinner. And she's a speaker, MC, and panelist. She's a TED speaker, y'all. I mean, yeah, she's a TEDx speaker. She also had a television show on Bricks TV, which reached 32 million homes across the African continent. She hosted a show called the Vuyo Joboda Show. And I mean, she's a student. This woman is a student. So she's accomplished all of this, and she's still a student. She is still a college student, which I think is absolutely amazing. She goes to the University of Cape Town and is studying filmmaking. So y'all, I am so excited and thrilled for you all to meet our guest, Vuyo Joboda. Let's get started. Welcome, Vuyo. I am so happy that you are joining me today on the Leading with Purpose podcast. I'm really excited to have you on and I read your bio, but bios really don't tell the story of people, in my opinion. So I would like for you to start off by tell us your story.
Yes. Firstly, I want to say this. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm a secret admirer of this podcast. So I go about and listen to episodes, but I haven't told Dr. Wajida yet to everyone listening, but I'm a secret admirer and absolutely love the idea of purpose, of course. So for me, when I saw that, I was so drawn to the podcast. But my story is quite, it's quite an interesting one. I was born and raised within a township called Kwalanga in Cape Town, South Africa, and grew up as the only child until I was about 11. So you can imagine being the only child and kind of having to navigate what it is, what being a child is without having siblings around or without growing up around other children. And I kind of, got to find myself and kind of really cement my own identity within that time, because I was forced to spend time with myself. So I was a very loner of a child, but also a very introspective driven child. and also fascinated child about life. And in that particular time, I discovered media, television, film, just the fascination around that. And I was drawn into that space. And I spent a lot of my, childhood time and teens very much in growing myself within that space, doing as much as I possibly could, because I've got the energy, right? I had the energy. I was young. I mean, what could have stopped me? So I was participating in each and every talent show you could imagine, pageants, talent shows, speaking competitions, and shows, and all of these things that really got me so busy as a child. And I kind of got to also cement a lot of who I am into understanding the idea of what my purpose is in the greater scheme of things. So yeah, I grew up as the only child, and I found, my interest and my passions from that time of introspection. Then my brothers came along and things started just being a bit different, because now I wasn't the only child anymore. But yeah, and I grew up from I was raised mainly by my grandmother and my mother. So the idea of strong women was something that was embedded within me. And I knew that I wanted to have and embody those characteristics that they had. And I wanted to model them and to do so in my own way. So yes, and my story is one of resilience. My story is one of never giving up. My story comes from, a place of difficulty. I had a very, very, difficult childhood. We were, in dire circumstances, with poverty and just, all of those things that one could assume and kind of think about when thinking about difficulties. I've kind of, experienced a bit of most things, right? Growing up, and those molded and shaped a lot of who I am today and a lot of how I see things and the world. So yeah, but most importantly, I just had a fun, young, playful childhood. And when I look back into it now, I'm so grateful for everything that I've gone through, for everything that I've kind of experienced, because it really got to make me who I am. And, having to go to school without any food, having to sleep sometimes without having any food, those are things that really got to make me a very strong person. So yeah, that is my story. And if you watch a bit of my TED talk, and you get to really understand a much more in depth, because I go into much detail in there, the story of resilience and the story of triumph and the story of seeing past what it is that's in front of you, to really find the better within you and go with that. So, but yeah, I'd say that's my story. But my story now, kind of from all of that difficulty, kind of produced this blossoming young woman who's very proud of who she is, and is very proud and grateful for the experiences that she's had and what she's learned, what she's taken, and is really growing into becoming and blossoming into the woman that she's always wanted to be. And that for me is a story now that I'm so proud to be part of. And to be experiencing. So yeah, I hope I answered your question.
You did. And that's absolutely amazing. And you said something, you said that, you were able to reach where you are now, in spite of kind of like the obstacles,
yes,
that were in front of you, and just being able to not allow those things to stop you. And when you think about your upbringing, and I imagine there are some listeners that have been in similar situations, what was your drive, if you will? What was the mindset that you either had or had to build to say, okay, yes, these are circumstances, but I'm not going to become a victim of these circumstances. I'm going to persevere. I'm going to be resilient. And this big brick wall that's in front of me right now, I'm either going to climb over it or knock it down, but this is not going to stop me from reaching my destination.
Yeah, I think for me, having to discover and find like television and film from a very young age, because it was all I had, right? I got to see different parts and different variations of what the world could possibly be. And I'm so grateful to that particular experience, because I got to know and see that what I'm seeing around me and the life that I'm experiencing, there's more to it than what I am. There's more to what I'm seeing. There's more to what I am experiencing. So that for me was it was a revelation that I got to discover, and hence my passion and my drive for the media industry, because I understood what it had done to me as a young girl, the power that it kind of gave me, and how it opened up the world for me to see and know that there's actually more, right? Whether it's watching a TV drama and you're seeing how families get to live, and you're like, wait, but I thought this is all that life is, right? But there's something different. So I think for me, that was one of the things that really played a big role into me opening up my mindset on how the world is and what I could possibly taste from the world and see, But also I think I just felt like there was something more. I felt like, this part, this life is, yes, I'm in it, but I felt like there was something else more that I wanted to discover. I wanted to see, I wanted to know. And in my talk, I also go to kind of speak about how different then I became in my community, because I saw things different. I spoke different. I did things different, and my peers didn't. My peers understood the world around them, and that's all that was their reality. But for me, I saw other things and I envisioned other things, and so that kind of played a very big role as well into channeling my mindset and having me really engrave my mind in a particular manner that I'm not going to shift or change my idea of what my destiny is. I know that everything that's around me is deterring me from reaching that, of course, but I will not change my mind about my destiny. I will not decide otherwise. And I think that particular, of course, it was difficult because it came with a lot of things like rejection, like bullying, like all of these things, because you're a different child. But I kind of understood the main goal. And for me, that there was nothing that could ever shake that. And there still isn't, even till this day, that can shake what it is that I'm meant to be and kind of the goal of where I want to go. So there's different things I would say. I remember having to watch my grandmother when I was very little, where we used to live. So there's these things called shacks in South Africa. I don't know if you kind of have an idea of what that looks like, but it's just zinc material that is kind of put together to build a house. So where I used to stay, there was a lot of fires because people used to kind of like just burn stuff, and that will kind of burn the entire community. So I used to watch my grandmother continuously have to rebuild that because we needed a structure and a home. So me watching that and seeing that particular resilience and understanding that that's a principle that I want to place in my life. And I might not be rebuilding shacks every single month like my grandmother did, but I could use that same principle in other avenues of my life. And I took that, kind of went with that. And it's kind of been something that has also kind of fueled me. So to take each and everything from that dire and difficult situations that I kind of grew up with, and to find what I could take from them, the lessons, the values, the principles, and apply them into my own way and understanding of what I think my destiny could possibly look like. And it's been challenging, of course, but those brick walls, and for me, it's I have to either climb over it, but I understand that there's a lot more that is waiting for me on the other side, and I need to make sure that I don't just sit back and give up.
You said a lot, but I want to. There's two points I want to come back to. You talked about kind of the difference between you and some of your peers and being where you are versus where they are. And when I think of my own journey, there were people that was kind of like, yeah, you are crazy for thinking that you could do any more than you're actually doing. There's this, so you mentioned shacks. So we have those in the South, and my family is from the South, but I grew up here in New York, and we grew up in public housing projects. And it's just kind of like, well, most project girls don't end up where I am, having a PhD, having the level of success. I was definitely blessed to have amazing, strong women that were just kind of like that force that helped push me in a different direction, because it's very easy to fall under peer pressure and become a part of the circumstances. Kind of like, you don't want to be the only one. You feeling like you're the only one, or that you're different, can really mess with your head. It can really do something. And it's just kind of like, it's easier to say, well, I'm going to be like everyone else. It's easier to fit in the box, as opposed to, you know, try and get out of the box, and not only get out of the box, but build your own box, you know, and have people look at you. So, and thinking about just kind of that, the talk, the words, the discouragement that people have had in saying, like, or even just kind of like the bullying and the looks, like, okay, because I've always gotten, oh, you think you're better than me.
Yes.
Well, no, I don't think I'm better than anyone. I just have goals that are different than yours. And it's okay. It's not a better than, it's just a different. And for me, I think because I've been that loner too, I've literally just kind of like been doing my own thing. It was easier to kind of like shake all of that off. In terms
with
of
the time you spend with yourself as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've become very good at self-reflection. Sometimes it's kind of like, all right, now it's time to get out of your head. But just kind of that, and it was always, not even, for me, it was more of being ostracized for wanting more for myself, less about being bullied or anything like that. But it's just kind of like, it was constantly, it's like, no, yes, I want better for myself. I want to do different things. I want to experience something beyond. And the crazy thing is, the projects that I lived in, there were like tall metal bars that went around the whole complex. And it was just like, it's like a prison. Like we were all just literally, and it's kind of like, my mind is too free to live behind bars. Like,
I know exactly what you mean.
And so just, when you think about that type of growth, even when you're young, that means some people have to get left behind. Some friendships have to end. Some relationships have to change. How did you manage leaving people behind? Or, just seeing what at the time were really great relationships, but realizing that wasn't the best relationship for you to be in, because it was keeping you from growing and moving in the direction that you wanted to.
In terms of that, I mean, that comes in various forms, whether it be family or friends or relationships. And I've really had a big struggle with that one. I've had a very big struggle. As I said, I grew up as the only child. So for me, the idea of relationships was kind of like cemented around my family, my close family. And I had to really define what it is that I want around me. And I was, from a very, very young age, very, very determined on identifying what I want in terms of energy, in terms of people. And because for me, the bullying was a thing that I grew up around, I didn't necessarily have a need, a need at particular time to have that many friends. And I understood that I was different. So for me, it clicked from a very, very young age that because you're different, you need to understand that not everyone is going to understand you. Not everyone is going to, specifically where you are living, not everyone might want to be friends with you because you speak a different language. It's just a matter of finding people that speak your language, people that understand what you say, people that can not even relate, but most importantly, make sense that there's nothing wrong with you. You're saying all of these things, you have all these dreams, but there's nothing wrong with you in that regard. So I've been very, very particular on who and what I allow within my space. And, I'm very particular about what I allow. So I didn't necessarily have the time or, growing up to establish that many friendships that I needed to let go. Because from the onset, I was very, very, distinctive about what friendships I want around me. And even now, I've very, very few friends. Like, I've just got a handful of people that I can really call friends and that I can trust and lean on. because of that idea that if I don't feel this particular energy, if I don't feel this person's energy, it might just drown me, and I don't like being drowned within a space or within, around people. So I ensure that I can, if a space allows me to be free, I exist in that space, and I'm very comfortable not existing in a lot of spaces that I tap out, right? And it's not even a thing where I get afraid of being alone or I get afraid of being too lonely, but it's just, if it doesn't feel right, if the energies in the space does not exist and doesn't make me feel like I can exist in it, I really kind of step out. So it's been very difficult. I've had family and friends kind of just automatically step away. Especially, for an example, I'm the first person in my family to go to university. I'm the first to start a business. I'm the first to write a book. Those things kind of made people just step away. And I sometimes I'm like, maybe I understand, there are certain things that you might feel like I won't understand, or I feel like you won't understand. So it's never even in a bad or in a malicious way, but just some people just, just move away, and some family members kind of speak to you different, and they see you in a different particular manner. And also some do have that energy that, oh, you are now, none of us have gone to varsity and you have, and now it's just like, how do you kind of hold that? So for me, I've just been very, very, very distinctive on what I allow around me. And I've got a very amazing mother and grandmother who have felt like friends most of my life, because they've been through all of it. I can talk to them about anything. I can relay anything. They might not know anything about business or books or writing or whatever, but they've really kind of became a support system that if I'm feeling in a particular way, I can go cry to them. I can go and relay out to them. They won't bring the solutions, but they'll give me a piece, a space of peace and solace, and I'll be able to think, and I'll be able to kind of move. So, I mean, I read a book and about Jack Ma's life, and he made a quote saying, one of the things about greatness is that you kind of find yourself in times where you're alone and you're lonely, and there's nothing wrong with that. It might be part of the journey, not isolating yourself from people, but understanding that not everyone is going to understand you. For me, was a realization that I had, and I've kind of stuck onto that.
That is amazing. And I just want to say, same in terms of like my mother and grandmother, like, again, they may not necessarily understand, but I can literally call them. It's like, oh my God, Mom, like this is happening. And she'll listen to me, and then she'll be like, it's okay, baby. Just take a deep breath. Let's talk about it. So what do you think you can do? And it's just like, okay, maybe it allows you to take time to process the emotion, let it out, but say, okay, now that I've gotten that out, let me take some time to think about
and solutions are coming, right?
Exactly. But it's hard. What I find for me in particular, it's hard to not be emotional, because it's very easy for me to be emotional, but to feel as if more than certain spaces are safe. Like I need to feel safe to be emotional. So it's just kind of like,
and vulnerable as well. Hey?
Exactly.
Thing,
Exactly. So like I get to, like, my mom allows me to be kind of that emotional hot mess when I need to be an emotional hot mess, because all the other times it's kind of like, all right, well, it's time to be composed now. And it's kind of like, in certain moments, it's just all you can do is say, take a deep breath, compose yourself, because you need to be front facing. And it's like all of that stuff gets bottled up in the back. So it's just amazing to be able to have anyone, and especially if you can have like your mom to be able to do that. And like my grandmother, like you mentioned your grandmother, my grandmother as well, it's like, hey Nana, how are you? And she'll be like, how are you, baby? And like we can just like we can just talk. So I think that is amazing. So I want to go back a little bit, and you talked about being young, and from a young age really kind of knowing what you, not necessarily even knowing what your destination was, but knowing the road that you wanted to take. So the podcast is Leading with Purpose podcast. Purpose for me is very important. And because that, when you have purpose, that's your drive. Like that is literally what gets you up in the morning and, you know, allows you to, even if you're not in the moment, able to do the things that you love, but pursue the things that you love, the, you know, the things that fulfill you. And for some people, some people never figure out what their purpose is. Sometimes some other people, it takes a very long time for them to get to that space. Others, it's kind of like, yeah, this is it. This is what I want to do. Here's how I see I can get, like, this is where. And you mentioned that you were young, and I also mentioned that you were young as well in the intro. And for you to know what your purpose is now, one, I think is amazing. And two, how did you discover what your purpose was?
So for me, this word is kind of one of my favorite things to kind of talk about, because it kind of goes very much, you know, very deep for me. It's something that has helped me really navigate and understand my position within the world and what my greater, you know, what it is that I'm here to basically do. And as I said, because I grew up alone, I spent a lot of time asking myself, what is my role in the greater scheme of things, right? What is my particular contribution? And for me, it starts from, you know, my family, my community, my country, my continent, and the rest of the world. What is my contribution that I can make to ensure that I've placed a mark within those spaces? And literally the discovery for me came from a bunch and a set of choices, right? Decision making and choice making was a very big thing as you know, growing up. So my discovery process and journey was based on making certain decisions and choices. Choices that might not be popular, choices that might not make everyone else feel, you know, that everyone else will like, but choices that felt right within inside of me. And choices that when I did, and when I did go there, and when I did do that, and when I did meet that, what did that feel like? It felt right. And for me, my purpose is my space that feels right, like my space where I feel, you know, it feels right within inside of me. So I made certain decisions that led me to the discovery and the woha moment, where I was like, wait, but my contribution is within this space, and within this space is what I'm meant to do. This is the contribution to my country. This is a contribution to my continent, and that's why I live and breathe and speak about the continent and what I possibly, my gifts and talents and what they could do, because a lot of people kind of, when I have conversations with people about the idea of purpose, it's this. They kind of think of purpose as something that's bigger or something that's out of their bodies. But for me, it's like purpose is within me and you, and us contribute and us doing and living within our truths that will all lead us to this one greater and bigger purpose, which is living in unity, living in harmony, and ensuring that the world is, you know, is growing, is becoming better. So for me, the realization was a very, very important part that I was so grateful to come across at a very young age. And I get the questions, how and why? It was literally a set of choices, and I based my life on principles as well. So also being very principle driven. A part of my book also is Principles to a Purposeful Life. So having to base my life on principles, and I was raised on certain principles as well. So the idea of principles is what I kind of base and I place my solace on. So, you know, some of the principles being love, and loving myself enough to know what I'm meant to be is a principle that I live by. So it was important that I understand what am I meant to be? Because I need to love myself enough. I need to value myself enough. I need to be kind enough to myself that I'm enabling my full potential and my full self to exist in the space and in the world that I'm meant to be existing in. So really it kind of a culmination of choices, making very strong and very bold and very distinctive choices from a very young age, and also having principles that I live by that really guided me really into the journey, to the discovery and to the moment of understanding what it is that I'm meant to do. And then now going about to, spend a day, each and every day in the maximization of it, right? And I do say that the book is about the realization, the maximization, and the full potential reach of what one's purpose can be. Because for me, I thoroughly believe in maximizing potential. I thoroughly believe in the realization of self, in the realization of purpose. So those things kind of really fueled my discovery. And in the process of writing the book was a relaying of my thoughts.
I want to stop you really quickly though. So
yes.
First, tell us, what is the title of the book?
Yes, the book is titled 21. That's it, it's titled 21.
And now continue, because the book, first, before you continue, tell us why it's titled 21.
Yes. So there's mainly two reasons why the book is titled 21. The first reason is I did not have a title, and I was like, and I'd finished the book. I had finished the book. The book was supposed to be going, I think, to get printed. I can't remember, but the book was done, and I needed to have a title for it. And I was like, And at the time, I knew that I was going to launch the book on my 21st birthday. And I was like, what can I think about? I mean, there's nothing that comes to mind. 21, right? But also there's something amazing, something very quite significant for me that I believe the number 21 signifies. It signifies a new era. It signifies, one could then say being 21 is getting into adulthood, for an example. But the concept of entering into a new phase, into a new era, and also the idea that when you've entered into the realization of your purpose, you've entered into a different time in your life. Because you start, you know what I mean? Like you start seeing and understanding yourself and things around you a bit more different. So that signification that when you're 21, you're entering into a new phase. The book in itself as well, in realization of what the context of it is to say, here's a manual, a guide, or tools that can enable the reader or whoever is engaging with the book to go about and enter within a new phase and enter within a new realm of thinking and an understanding. So yeah, those are the two reasons. But the first one is that I didn't have a title.
So now I want you to, and I just wanted to make sure that we put a little more context into what you're saying. And it goes back to, which I think is absolutely amazing, that at such a young age, you knew what your purpose was. And you talked about how, the choices and the guiding principles are what kind of helped you realize, not really help you realize, because I think with purpose, it's always there. We have to discover what it is. We have to we have to come to a realization. We have to step into that new world, that new life, in order for us to really kind of live in it. So I want you to continue to talk more, if you can, about kind of like those guiding principles, and a little more about the book in terms of what that has done for you, the impact that, or the goal you had in terms of the impact that you wanted to make. And, you started to talk about how it can help the readers, but I want you to talk about that a little more.
So what I found interesting within the writing process of the book, I mean, I was 18, 19 at the time. When I wrote the book, it was a very, very difficult time of my life, because it was a time when I had to come to peace with my purpose. I had to come to peace, because for a very long time, as much as I was fully aware and very cognizant of it, and working towards living in it, I was afraid of the magnitude and the power that it withheld, that I kind of held it back. But that for me was a massive struggle within myself. And during the time of writing the book, it was me saying to myself, allowing and enabling myself to be okay with what it is that my purpose was. So it was a conversation with myself, most importantly, and a conversation with myself, telling myself that it's okay. Yes, the purpose that you've got engraved inside of you and that is within you has so much power within it. It's okay to realize it, and it's okay to be afraid of that power and what it can possibly be. But at the same time, just enable it to manifest. It's okay. So that book, the writing process was very, very difficult. It was a very hard time for me. And I just had to come to peace. I had to come to peace, and that was hard. Because as I said, I was really afraid of tapping into it. I was really afraid of what it can do and how far it can go. So that was the writing process of it. And when I had finished writing it, and I kind of looked back and to see what it is that I would want to relay out, because having done a lot of speaking engagements, around the country for a lot of my, teens and the first 2 years of my 20s, a lot of public speaking and a lot of motivational speaking and a lot of engagements. I had a lot of people say to me that we hear you speak and we're absolutely, admiring what you're saying, but I'd like to take something back home with me. I'd like to have what you're saying, and I'd like to keep going back to it. And kind of go back into reminding myself what it is that you had said. So it made sense for the book to come out in that particular time, because I then again said, I would like to these are personal things that I'm sharing. And it was a very, very vulnerable process writing the book. And I do get to share very vulnerable things within the book. So this is me sharing and giving you this gift to say, here's how I processed it in a very, very interesting and difficult way. But this is how I kind of got to understanding, my purpose. And I think these tools and these principles will kind of help you along. And people have come back to say, I do go back and reference from time to time when I'm feeling some type of way, when I'm thinking, in a particular type of way, I just go back to chapter 1 or chapter 2. So really there is so much that I am so hoping, the first chapter of the book is called Black Kid Intelligence. And it kind of goes in and it relays about what it is that, Black kid intelligence looks like, and how I understood, myself being a Black kid and having been, growing up around Black kids and seeing the potential that Black kids don't understand they possess. And that was actually the last chapter that I wrote, but I felt like it made sense in the beginning, and then it kind of goes on, to purpose. But some of the things that it kind of, for me, I wanted for everyone, or for every Black child, for an example, to open that book, firstly to understand that writing a book is a possibility, because in my world, it's not. In my world, what does that look like? In my world, I don't even know anyone in my community that has written a book. So that understanding that this is a possibility is a very big thing. And that particular chapter to remind and to tell, a Black kid who doesn't know and understand the possession of their intelligence and how to manifest their intelligence. So that particular chapter really speaks onto that. And there's so much engraved, and I also get to share my TED talk within the book as well, but kind of then goes into purpose and how I've understood it to be, and how I've kind of made sense of it, and the discovery process and the principles that I've used to discover and to kind of fuel the journey into living a purposeful life. But yeah, I mean, it's such a, I really hope and I wish that anyone who takes and reads the book will not be afraid, because that's what I was when I was writing the book, right? Or before I was, or during that time, I was just afraid. I was afraid. So I just wish that someone who reads that book will say, I won't be afraid anymore. I won't be afraid of being powerful and being brave and being, and being talented. I won't be afraid. Even if it makes people uncomfortable, I won't be afraid anymore. I won't be afraid of living my truth. I won't be afraid of what people are going to say. because those are some of the things that hold people back from actually living, and maximizing their potential. So I won't be afraid, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to go, and I'm going to understand, and I'm just going to live my best and most truest life is what I'd really like, people to take from the book. And it really touched my heart, and it's been a project of mine that I really kind of held as a passion project. And as I said, it was my gift to the world on my 21st birthday. I said, world, here's my gift to you. But it also is not, it's not for 21-year-olds. It's for everyone. Mm-hmm. It's for everyone who really just wants to, as I said, not be afraid of their power, because there's so much power that we withhold and we have as human beings. And I go into the book and I also kind of explain the godliness that we have and possess within ourselves. Mm-hmm. That is scary. And it was a very scary thing for me to understand that I've been created as a God within this earth, and I could manifest, speak, create, do, make, build things.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
Whether it's building a family, building a career, building a legacy, building a business, I'm made to build, create, and manifest things and speak things to life. So those are things that we're afraid of tapping into, and the realization that I've got a godliness within me, and that I've got the power. It's things that we sometimes are afraid to admit and tap into. But the book forces one, or not even forced, but really encourages one to start thinking in that particular way.
It's amazing that you say that, because a mentor of mine has, whenever I was kind of like in the space, he always reminded me, he used to say, Wajida, remember, you have the God particle. And I was kind of like, say more, sir. What do you mean? So the fact that you're saying like you have that power, that's for that kind of, is equivalent for my mentor telling me, it's kind of like, we have the God particle. Not everyone gets it. But when you have it, you have to realize that it's not for you. It's for the world. Yes. And with that being said, you said that your book was a gift to the world, but you are out here doing a whole bunch of other things. You're giving the gifts, you're giving the world many other gifts. Tell us what those gifts are, please.
Oh man, so I'd like to describe myself as a multifaceted, young woman. My biggest tagline that I kind of attach to me a lot of the times is I am an evolving, going global queen. And that for me, the idea of globalization is tapping into the multiplicity of the world. And I am, in pursuit of discovering and tapping into the multiplicity of myself. I'm unafraid of acknowledging my talents. I'm a very, I'd like to believe that I'm very talented. I do speaking. I'm a trained speaker. I do presenting, and I absolutely love that. Performance as well. I've got did training for performance and acting and theater productions at UCT. Then went to film school, and now I'm also a producer and director, writer, and all of that. And I've also kind of started my own platform. I've got a streaming service and streaming platform that I've created, which is from the African continent, by an African, by a woman. And it's something we rarely see within this industry, but it's something that I was unapologetically getting myself within. It's, it's putting together the tech world and the media industry into one, and introducing that to a continent where a cell phone to some people still is a weird concept, right? So I really, I'm a visionary. One of my other talents, I'm a visionary. I am an empire and a builder, and a legacy builder. And I'm unapologetic in that regard. Like I am so unapologetic with what it is that I withhold. And of course, I'm an author. I love writing. I love sharing stories. But most importantly, I'm an impact and world changer. And that's one thing that I'm really proud to, put next to my name, and unapologetically so. You're
amazing. And I said in the introduction, how much I love you, how much I love your soul, and how beautiful it is. And I thank you so very much for sharing your wisdom with us. But before we go, I would like for you to tell our listeners, I guess, give your I'll say one piece of advice that you think would be beneficial for them in listening to the world, the voice, whatever is talking to them, to say, this is your calling, and heeding that call to make an impact.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I would kind of like, particularly within this time, right? It's been very much in my spirit, and I've been thinking about it a lot. And it's the idea and the realization that as society, as people today, we are in one of the most beautifulest times in humanity. We are in a time where we can discover and really get to speak and manifest what it is that we want the world to be, right? We've kind of in a space and in a time where what it is that we want the world to be, we can go about creating now, because things are changing, right? We are in space and a time of change. So to anyone really who is in a space where they either don't know what it is their purpose is, or really don't know how to go about maximizing their purpose within this time, I would definitely say that we are in a time right now where what has been before, we will not probably see moving forward. So really get to spend time into realizing and understanding what it is that you want your world to be, and how you can go about adding what it is that you have. I'm very big on being skill driven and wanting to empower self. To anyone who's listening, let's not be afraid of growing consistently and growing, and not being afraid of growing and growth, and the idea and the element of growing oneself and empowering oneself and becoming better versions of ourselves every single day. Yes. So going out and not being afraid to really tap into everything that it is that can grow you. I love growth. I think it's a beautiful concept as well. So growing and growing and growing, whether it's what you do, in who you are, in every element and aspect of yourself. It's a very important thing to kind of, as we're going into this time, as we're going into purpose maximization, as we're going into purpose realization, we really are also engraved with the idea of growth. So really growing and expanding and getting better, but also, love is a very big thing. Loving self, loving those around, loving the idea of humanity and society, and really using love to kind of take us forward. I think it's such a beautiful time. And I said this in an interview before. One asked, why would you start a platform in the middle of lockdown? And for me, just the idea of having an opportunity to create something from an idea and from a time where the world has been shut and the world has kind of said, the voices have all kept quiet, right? The noise is now silenced. Yep. Now we have every possible time and energy within the world to really get to rethink and reevaluate what we want the world to be. And that being the time now. And for me, it was important. I just wanted the media industry within the continent to go in a particular manner that I felt like we weren't tapping enough into, and wanting to manifest that. So really, let's spend this time to go about introspect, but also go about and manifest what it is that we've introspected about. And also just not be afraid, not be afraid to speak the greater, the bigger, the big things that seem impossible. But, we, as I said, we've got power. We are gods. We've got power. We've got, we possess it within ourselves. So to anyone listening, let's just go make the world great. That's what I'm going to say.
Yes. Thank you so much for this. Was amazing. I just feel really good after this conversation. So thank you so much. And thank you everyone for listening. I am going to provide you with all of the links, link to her books, link to Vuyo's platform, where she is, what she's doing, everything in the comments and the notes section. And I am so glad that you all gave us this space today, and I will catch you next time. Bye.
Cheers, everyone.
Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. It has been great sharing this space with you. I hope that you have taken what you've needed so you can share what you've learned, and that you are on your way to living, learning, and leading with purpose. I encourage you to stay connected with me. Please remember to subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. You can also follow us on Instagram at Leading with Purpose Podcast. And don't forget to visit my website, www.wajitasmall.com, where you can subscribe to my mailing list. Till next time.